I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Thursday, June 13th, 2019 of the Royal Oak Zoning Board of Appeals. Before I do anything, I would like to welcome our newest member, Nancy Robinson. And if you want to give yourself a brief introduction and tell us why you joined, we'd love to hear it.
I'm Nancy Robinson. I am a Royal Oak native, pretty much born and raised here, a product of the Royal Oak schools. My background is in construction and real estate, and I'm just really happy to be here and happy to contribute to making Royal Oak what it is today. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Welcome aboard. With that, let me move along to the first item of business, which is approval of the minutes for the May 9th, 2019 meeting. Oh, crap. Well, let's do the minutes, then I'll do the opening.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll support them.
Okay. Any corrections, additions, deletions? Not seeing any, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I missed the call to order. I apologize, everybody. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following the public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, which is not the case this evening, you must inform the chairperson immediately following the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in the public hearing, please do your best to limit your comments to 3 minutes. With that, we will move along to our first item of old business, which is case number Item C1, case number 190514, public hearing on the appeal of Michael Lemanski, petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, alter and expand a non-conforming structure. B, waive 2.2 feet of the minimum required south side yard setback of 8 feet to permit construction of a rear yard additional to an existing non-conforming single-family home dwelling located at 1203 North Blair. Mr. Murphy.
This was a public hearing that was held last month, but I'll go through the findings again, and if you decide that you want to open the public hearing once again to hear a comment, we can certainly do that. This property is located at the corner of North Blair and Derby. It has a single-family home and a detached garage, as you can see from the aerial photograph. The house maintains a non-conforming south setback along Derby, and that distance is 5.8 feet. The zoning ordinance requires a minimum side yard setback along Derby of 8 feet. The petitioner is proposing to do a 1-story rear yard addition to the home in the general area where the deck is located on the aerial photograph in front of you, and I'll also refer to the photographs. I think they're helpful in referencing the general location of the addition. So it's a rear yard addition to the back of the home. The addition, as we'll look and see on the elevations and the floor plans, is in line with that existing exterior wall of the home. So the addition retains that non-conforming setback. The current structure is non-conforming. They're expanding it in a non-conforming manner, and therefore they need a waiver from the zoning ordinance standard of 8 feet, an 8-foot setback, in order to keep the addition in line with the existing home. And that's the drawing that they provided to us is a clear indication of where that addition will occur. And you can see it outlined in the hatched area on the drawing in front of you on the screen. With that, the petitioner should be present today, and we'll provide you with an update. And again, if you want to reopen the public hearing, you're certainly welcome to do so.
And before I call the petitioner forward, is there any questions for staff at this point? All right, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present? Petitioner?
Nope. The petitioner did provide us some correspondence that they had tabled the request to table the case last month, and they had some conversation back and forth with us based on that conversation, and did sound as though they were going to be present today.
Okay. Do you want us to table it for another month?
How many months do you get to show up to these things?
Yes, sir.
Maybe we just table it to the end of the meeting, and if they haven't shown up by then, we then decide.
Oftentimes, that's a wise decision, yes.
Okay, we can do that.
That's fine.
Do you need a motion for that, or do you just want to just pick it up at the end?
No, you can make a motion to move the item to the last on the
Mr.
agenda.
Pack?
I make a motion to move this item to the last on the agenda of the public hearing portion at least.
I'll support that.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so we will kick that back to the end. Moving right along to our first item of new business, item D1, case number F190603, public hearing on the appeal of Mike Zouras, petitioner and owner for the following variance. Waive 2 feet of the maximum permitted 6-foot fence height to permit construction of an 8-foot tall privacy fence along the south property line of the condominium complex located at 3311 through 3333 Nell Rose Court. Mr. Murphy.
This is a variance request to the fence ordinance requirements. You'll see from the aerial photograph below, there's a small condominium complex located near the corner to Rochester and 13 Mile. It's located adjacent to the gasoline filling station, which is directly at that corner. I'll zoom in on the aerial photograph and illustrate that condominium complex, the subject property, shares a south property line. It had vegetation, it had arborvitae that were located on that south property line, and they provided a screen between the condominium complex and the gasoline filling station to the south. The petitioner recently, I want to say maybe a year or two ago, did install a vinyl fence along Crooks Road, and it wraps along the side and extends to a portion of the south property line. That's a 6-foot high vinyl fence. What they're hoping to accomplish, they recently, as we can see from the photographs, have removed all of that vegetation, and they want to install an 8-foot vinyl fence along most of the rest of their south property line. And they believe that that will provide them with greater screening compared to the vegetation that was there. They applied for a building permit, and the building division provided them with a denial letter indicating that their proposal exceeded the allowable fence height of 6 feet. So they're seeking a waiver from that standard in order to erect that fence at 8 feet in height. And this is a view from the west side of their property, looking east
right?
from their internal drive, and a portion that looks out onto the back side of the filling stations building. And this is just the opposite view from the east to the west.
Ms. Anderson.
Joseph, is there a reason why there's 2 different heights for I'm assuming the brick is the gas station's property? They put that up.
In general terms, yes. And the petitioner can provide you with some recent history of that property boundary. The gasoline filling station is the more intense use under the zoning ordinance, and it is required to have at least a 6-foot high masonry screening wall from the adjacent multiple family condominium development. That screening wall's been there for a very long time, and you and/or Alan may remember quite a few years ago, they came in for a variance request because the gasoline station did. The screening wall adjacent to the internal driveway for the condominium complex was falling down, and the gas station asked for a variance to not have to put up that screening wall, and that was denied. They restored that screening wall. The other portion of their screening wall is now fallen over, and we've been in conversation with them. We've given them notice that needs to be fixed, and they seem to be taking steps to accomplish that. They've been in conversation with the condominium association to try and come up with a resolution to satisfy both parties. And the condominium complex can present to you that recent history on that. This was a part of a former school site. There was a single-family home there as well. And the elevation difference may have occurred when that site was redeveloped as a condominiums, which now the developer is no longer associated with. The residents that live there are.
Well, that's my second question was about the elevation difference, because it's substantial. So it's like, even if the gas station put in their 6-foot wall, it doesn't really do anything to buffer the condominiums per se, because there's about a 3-foot difference.
Yes, and that's what the condominium association is trying to achieve with removing the vegetation that they've had informed us was not surviving. And they felt that putting up an 8-foot vinyl fence would be, we'll say in lieu of that screening, to help them
Okay.
mitigate the adjacent use, the filling station.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present? Yeah, please come forward.
We're 1 for 2, we're doing good.
500. Well, first of all, thanks for allowing us to come and present. I really appreciate it. Basically, I'll make it quick.
Sir, can I just have you introduce yourself for the
Yeah, I'm
record,
sorry.
please?
I'm Mike Zouras. I'm the president of Indian Wells Homeowners Association.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Basically, when it was developed, there was 10-foot emerald arborvitaes that were put in that created a privacy hedge that actually provided, a significant amount of privacy, noise, and light abatement. And over time, we saw the degradation of some of those shrubs. Replaced them quite often, but what we found out in talking to some of the landscape people was that we have clay soil and not a very inviting environment for growing those type of shrubs. So in lieu of that, when we saw some deterioration over time, we lost some privacy. You could see right through it. Once we completed the fence addition along Crooks in 2016, it was appealing to all of the homeowners, and we also had some issues with trespassers and whatnot. It afforded us the privacy that we were hoping to continue with. So along the same lines, we're requesting a variance just to replicate that initial emerald arborvitae hedge with the expected improvement of the privacy, noise, and light issues. The same company from 2016 who installed our privacy fence would be working on that. And I believe it's important, although it's not 10 feet like the initial arborvitaes, we believe the variance will enable our homeowners to experience a similar performance as it relates to privacy, noise, and light issues. With regards to the gas station, we've just had some internal meetings with the board, and we've determined that we are going to fund, she's been waiting for some dirt to be moved. What her fence company, although it's her fence that fell down, they've said they have to get access to the cinder blocks at the base. And so they need the dirt moved, and we were a little bit apprehensive on touching that. It's her fence. We thought it was her responsibility. Although our lawyer says it is, we feel like it's in the best interest for us to go ahead and fund that. We're going to go ahead and pay her for that. We were going to advise her of that, but we're going to ask for her to have her own contractor do that. We don't want to be the ones that contract that out. And so we're going to offer that to her and hopefully get this resolved so she can get moving on that.
Any questions for the petitioner? Yes, ma'am.
Is the current fence, the wooden one, plastic one, is that 6 feet right now?
Yes.
Okay, so you just want to have it another 2 feet above
Yeah,
that?
if you look at the pictures, one of the issues there is we don't have quite the light intrusion. They have lights at the top of that, and it's just doesn't really allow us to have the same level of privacy, noise, and light abatement that we had initially with those arborvitaes.
Well, I was in one of your units recently, and I noticed, I think at the time the arborvitae were still there, and the arborvitae did have a nice softness to it. And I noticed at this end, I thought, oh, bummer if you had to have a unit there, because I can see right over
Do you
and I see
remember if you were in the
everything.
north or the south side? So the north are pretty healthy, and they're.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
it was
so those are okay. We just seem to have problems on the south side,
Okay.
and it was quite an expense to
Right.
continue to try to replace those.
Did I see your hand, Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the existing 6-foot fence.
Yes.
Was that gonna stay in place as an existing 6-foot fence, or do you wanna remove the 6-foot portion and place 8-foot portion?
It was going to stay as is. I think there was a little bit of discussion at the board meeting if we wanted to discuss one of those panels being 8-foot, but we'd be happy with it being 8-foot where it's at. We don't plan to change that at all. It's maybe a panel or two that our corner unit would get a little privacy, but we feel like the biggest issue we have right now is what's open there now.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any, I'm going to ask you to take a seat real quickly, sir, so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this issue? Not seeing anybody, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the
Oh,
table.
there's a
Glad
hand.
you have one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you back. My apologies. Please come forward. Might be time for new glasses. I apologize.
I'm the family member, I'm the owner of the gas station. Just wanted to
And
let
your
you know
name is?
I'm here. My
Your
name is
name?
Karen DeWitt.
Thank you.
And I have had several conversations with Deneen about, the issue. It's been an ongoing thing for a little bit. And I just wanted to state that, I don't have a problem if they wanted to put up an 8-foot fence. I agree, the arborvitae were a complete eyesore when they were dead. It didn't do much for my business, either, as far as helping them or us, so. Anyway, I just wanted to state that, that I was here and that I'm interested in what is happening, and I'm hoping that we can work together on getting this issue resolved, because that is, the goal, so.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Did I see a hand out there also? Anybody else going up? Yes.
Sorry, I live in one of the units, I'm Mark Russ, by the way, right that face directly where her wall fell down. In addition to all the points that are brought up that I agree with, I mean, where I live, just in back of the gas station, I also have a safety concern. We've had 2 cars in the gas station blast through the brick wall, shattering bricks and debris into our driveway. There was a car bumper in our drive. So any additional reinforcement and protection from the activities in that gas station is also a priority of mine. And I think this fence would be helpful in providing that extra protection from whatever, trash coming over, let alone cars breaking through our brick walls into our property, so.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of a car going through my brick.
Well,
Not important.
folks.
That-
Folks, please, we're having a meeting here. If you want to talk, please go out in the hall. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board on this matter? All right, not seeing anybody, I will bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Curtis?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variances requested for an 8-foot fence.
I will support that.
Any additional discussion, Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, no, I think it'd be great to have a nice, clean, constant barrier for both parties along that border there. Certainly the residents and as well, the gas station. So, yep, it's a variance and it's well-deserved.
I would agree with that. It's obviously a problem that isn't going away through a lot of different efforts. So I think if ever there were a time that the extra 2 feet would be well used, it would be this. So I'm totally in support of it.
Mr. Opak?
I think they have a unique hardship in that they abut a commercial facility, and I actually think the ordinance should allow anyone who abuts a facility of commercial to be allowed to have an 8-foot fence for privacy, because there's so many times you don't want the public to be in your private area, and 6 feet usually does not help you, even abutting a commercial to residential. So I definitely do not have any issue whatsoever with their request.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
And this does make it possible for them to take that 6-foot fence and make it 8-foot, right? Because I would even be in favor of that. So if that was something that they were interested in doing, I don't have any problem with it. I think it's a benefit to both parties there.
That's not really on the table, though, is it?
Well,
Mr. Murphy?
Let's take a look at the wording.
Yeah.
It can, in my
it
opinion.
says it along,
Along the south property line.
Yeah,
Perfectly
it says
acceptable.
anywhere along the south property line.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Cladd, I think I saw your hand.
No, I'll support as well. I just suggest that they consult with a structural engineer regarding that brick wall. That's not just a screen wall, that's a retaining wall as well. So it'd be wise to consult the structural engineer on that.
That wall was built as a screening wall, and when the developer developed it, he was allowed to put soil against it, which should never have happened.
Well, it's acting as a retaining wall, so.
We're banting some
All right,
areas
with-
here, I think.
With nothing else, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. You're all set. All right, so that moves us right along to item of new business D2, case number 190615, public hearing on the appeal of Giovanni Alua petitioner and Alvarez LLC owner for the following variances. A, waive 10 foot of the minimum required 50-foot lot width for parcel A, waive 1,200 square feet. Folks, can I ask you to take the conversation to the hall, please? B, waive 1,200 square feet of the minimum required 6,000 square foot lot area for parcel A. C, waive 10 foot of the minimum required 50-foot lot width for parcel B. D, waive 1,200 square feet of the minimum required square foot lot area for parcel B to permit a land division at 528 South Minerva Avenue. Mr. Murphy.
The site currently is comprised of 2 platted lots, and you'll see those referenced on the plat map on the screen in front of you, 2 40-foot wide lots. Therefore, it's 80 feet wide by 120 feet deep and 9,600 square feet in lot area. Has a single-family home with an attached garage, and the petitioner is proposing to demolish all the structures on the site, revert back to the original 2 platted lots. They're looking to build 2 buildable lots at 40 feet in width. And we did do the analysis to determine whether the 2 lots that they're creating are the same size or larger than the majority of the lots that are already on the block. And they're not. They don't meet that at least being 50% or more threshold. We did the analysis, and in terms of the width, there are 18 lots on the block, and it's the same size or larger than only 6 of those 18, so 33%. It's 100% in terms of the depth, but the area is only 5 of 18 lots, or 28% of the lots on the block are equivalency in terms of their depth. So it doesn't meet that 50% threshold. The ordinance says if it doesn't meet that 50% threshold, it needs to meet the flat standard of 50 feet wide, 100 feet in depth, and 6,000 square feet in lot area. And obviously, it's not able to accomplish that. So they're seeking the waivers from the standard of 50 feet in depth and 6,000 square feet in lot area in order to revert back to that original plat.
My question for you, Mr. Murphy, would be this. When I was looking at the picture that you provided here, it looks like the 2 lots immediately to the south are both 40 foot. The one immediately to the north is also 40 foot, but the one immediately above that sort of got cropped a little bit.
Yes, you'll see, I'll zoom in a tiny bit more here. The numbers in blue are the original plat numbers, so you'll see that the current lot, which is outlined in red, is comprised of 1584 and 1583, both
Right.
being on that. The inside of the red line, 40 feet in, and now together it's 80 feet in width. You're correct, in the lot to the south, the existing lot remains as it was platted at 40 feet, and so does the corner lot. The one to the north, you'll see, just like the subject property, there's a number on the outside of the line. It's comprised of 2 40-foot lots.
Gotcha.
And I will say that when we do the analysis, we review, under the ordinance requirements, we review all the other interior lots on the block. Therefore, we wouldn't count this corner lot because it has a separate standard.
Right.
Looks like a lot of 40-foot lots, though.
I imagine that most of the lots on the block are platted at 40 feet, and then they may have been carved up and divvied up into different portions or doubled up into 80-foot lots.
So this is the original plat division. It's not what is existing now.
The outline in red does illustrate for the subject property that it's comprised of these 2 40-foot wide lots, and that their current dimension is reflected on the outside edge of the line at 80 feet. Just like the lot to the north. It's comprised of 2 40-foot wide lots. Its current lot width is shown here as 80 feet.
Did I see a hand over here? I thought I did. All right, any other questions for Mr. Murphy?
And I'm correcting, the petitioner's not requesting any variance regarding coverage if the split is awarded.
No, they haven't They haven't given us anything to indicate what they exactly want to build and whether it will need variances. We can inquire if that's the case and certainly make them aware that if they do need to, if they want to build, if it's approved today and they have two buildable 40-foot wide lots and they want to construct something that needs a variance, it'll have to be back in front of you.
It'd be nice if everybody would do that once, bring it in and show
Yeah,
us
it's
what they're
pretty
trying to
rare that
do.
it does happen. We always make people aware that that's potentially a circumstance, and when I say, if you do have a 40-foot wide lot, can you make it happen? And they always say, well, yes, of course, I will never have to come back, and then every once in a while, you do see people come back.
Of course. All right, not seeing any of the questions, is the petitioner present? Yeah, please come forward, sir.
Hi, I'm Giovanni Aluya, and I'm looking to split the lot.
And is there any more detail you want to add than that, or?
Not much.
That cuts to the chase.
Just looking to split the lot to build 2 new homes on it.
Do you currently live on the property,
No.
or are you buying it?
No, this home is unstructural. I think it needs to be demolished either way, split or not.
Mr. Ofac.
What unique hardships cause the need to split it and not use the lot as it can be used already?
The homeowners, I don't believe,
Financial
Have-
not
have
withheld,
the
because
finance
financial is
to
not a
redo the home.
hardship.
Right. I don't believe the homeowners have the capability to either remodel this home or demolish and redo it for what they're trying to get for.
Yes, ma'am.
It still sounds like you're speaking of a financial situation here. And I don't think the board has heard a real hardship. Did you go through the criteria and look at those criteria?
The hardship for the owners of the property? Or the hardship?
Or the property itself?
Property itself.
Owners don't have hardships, property has hardships.
I don't believe the owners to split the 80-foot lot for the amount they want. I don't think a buildable home would justify the price for me.
Any other questions for the petitioner at this point? All right, not saying anything, I'm going to ask you to take a seat real quickly, sir, so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this issue? All right, not seeing any, I will bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Ofac?
I'll make a motion to deny variances requested.
I'll support.
Second, Mr. Ofac?
One, they've given no hardships for this, financial does not count. This is something that they've brought upon themselves. They can use the lot as it is, and as we've seen just last meeting, there's a nice house that was brought before us on a double lot. So it's not to say that you can't have a nice house on a double lot. And if we actually carve this up and split it up, now we've just increased the odds of someone else on the street being able to split their lots instead of having this nice combination of large and small sized lots. So I think we have no reason to cause them allowing to split the lot.
Mr. Gavin, any follow-up?
My only addition would be that, looking at, some of the the neighborhood itself and the street itself, there are a few 40-foot lots, but most of them are more than that from what I see. And I don't know that, where that's at fits the character of the neighborhood, or is a common problem or anything. It's a common problem, not unique.
Mr. Clapp?
I agree with that too. Typically with lot splits, I look for consistency, and I just don't see that here. 40 feet is not the norm here. It's the minority in the street.
Mr. Kroll?
I kind of walked in as this being a jump ball, but I really feel like you haven't done a very good job in presenting why we should do this. And I think the people on the board voting against it are making more compelling reason for not, so I'll be supporting the denial.
Yeah, I'll just jump into the discussion. I'm not as persuaded by, they're 40-foot lots. Lots of these people ended up with double lots. To split it back into a 40-foot lot doesn't bother me much. I don't think the density is a problem. But I gotta agree that I haven't even heard an attempt at any sort of hardship, so I will be supporting the motion based on that.
Ms. Anderson?
I feel that just because we're looking at a platted grid, not everything should be reversed to its original platted grid. I do believe that they, in some instances, there are a lot of these narrower plats that were offered to homeowners to, okay, if you can afford a little bit more, then you can build a bigger house and you might have a little yard. And I see us kind of looking at things like, oh, okay, it was platted this way, let's just go with it. Even though our ordinance says that it has to be 50 feet wide and 6,000 square feet minimum, I see us chipping away at that a little bit all the time. And it concerns me.
Any other comments? All right. Seeing none, I will call for the vote, and then, of course, this is a motion to deny the requested variances or variance. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. I apologize, sir. All right, that moves us along to, now we're at the second page, the last few items. We can do this one first. Item D3, case number 190616, public hearing on the appeal of Robin Balu, petitioner, and Mary Curie, owner, for the following variance: waive 4.7 feet of the minimum required 35-foot north rear yard setback to permit construction of a rear yard addition to an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling located at 3918 Amherst Road. Mr. Murphy, and thank you.
The subject property currently contains a single-family home with an attached garage, and I'll reference the existing survey on the screen in front of you. It has a sunroom off the backside of the house, which is in this general location. The sunroom is an integral part of the house, and it is subject to the minimum rear yard setback, which is measured to the nearest point of living space. In this case, it includes the sunroom, and that's required to be at least 35 feet. The sunroom addition, the current sunroom addition, is less than a 35-foot setback. You can see the petitioner did a nice job of outlining in red on the right-hand side the point at which 35 feet is, and that sunroom is clearly within that rear yard setback. It's non-conforming right now. The petitioner is proposing to remove that sunroom addition, and I'll scroll over to the opposite side of the screen, and they're looking at adding a larger addition to the rear of the home, bigger than the footprint of the sunroom addition. But they do note the approximate location of the sunroom to give you a relative understanding of their expansion of that ground floor area of the home. So again, they're eliminating the nonconformity, and the first floor addition that they're seeking to put in place would also be nonconforming. So they're seeking a waiver to essentially reestablish a nonconforming setback of that living space to expand their kitchen area and their dining area. I will note that there is also a new attached garage which conforms to the ordinance requirements, and there is a full second-story addition to the house that conforms to the rear yard setback requirement. It's just that, I'll say, a little bump out to the rear of the house that they want to, that does not meet the 35-foot setback. We can look at the elevations to illustrate the setbacks of the home. So again, the rear yard setback to the ground floor of the new addition to the home does not conform, but the upper floor does conform to the 35-foot setback. So they're seeking a waiver from the rear yard setback in order to accomplish that ground floor addition.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Yes, ma'am.
Is the old attached garage in a non-conforming use? Because that protrudes to the back also.
It does. It doesn't contain any living space.
So that doesn't.
So it's actually allowed to go within that rear yard setback. Yes, I understand where you're going with the logic of, and if it's an attached garage and it doesn't have any living space above it or attached to it, it can be pushed closer to that rear lot line. But once you add the element of living space, it's required to be set back. So it's really the provision of, is it living space? And then it needs to meet a further setback than if it's accessory.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Is the petitioner present?
Hello.
Good evening.
Evening. Robin Ballou, the architect for the client, Mary Curry. As you can see, it's not an unusual lot in that there's the garage is set way back on it. That happens a lot in these houses. What we're trying to do is bring the garage forward to help with the giving more space into the backyard of the house. So the hardship is really that the lot is only 100 feet deep. Even the small lots that we're looking at in most of Royal Oak are 120 feet deep, so it's an unusually shallow lot. We're maintaining that existing line of the existing nonconformity. We're not trying to go further back into it. So we're not increasing the distance into the rear yard. And if anything, by bringing the garage forward, we're helping reduce the impact on that rear yard to make the house more cohesive. And I think the expansion, if you look at the existing survey, you can see that the expansion of the addition on that first floor is really just filling in the gap between the old sunroom and the old garage. It's basically the space that's being taken up. And then we're pulling the garage forward to give a larger footprint on the garage without having just a massive garage on the property. And the homeowner's just planning on living there. There's not going to be, it's not a fix and flip or anything like that. She's planning on occupying the home. So, are there any questions?
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony, I saw you first, so go ahead.
While I appreciate the design, was there any attempt to look at seeing about doing that addition without needing the proposed variance, considering that looks like it's just open to a great big area for kitchen and dining room?
Yeah, we did look at that as an option, as it is, you can see that the dining room would get pulled forward and that space would be carved out, making an odd space for flow in that area. So we felt like this was a better design. We felt like we weren't making the setback or the nonconformance worse to the rear yard, and we're not really abusing any of the ordinances. And because of that depth of the lot, we were stuck working within that narrower footprint to really update the home. So we did try, but we didn't think it served the property as well.
Any other questions? All right, I'm sorry.
I think the only question I have is, did you reach out to your neighbors at all? Did you discuss?
Yeah, we've gotten feedback from the neighbors. They were, in support. They didn't have any issues with what we were planning. They saw what the relationship was. I mean, there's other houses on that block that they've completely torn down and rebuilt, just up the street there that are, they didn't respect the existing home as much as we're trying to. So I think we're doing a good service to the community. The homeowner's trying to do what's best for the community, and we did pass it by the neighbors that surround when we were working on the project. So.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm going to ask you to take a seat real quickly, sir, so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this issue? All right, not seeing anybody, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Kroll?
I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I'll support.
A motion and a second. Mr. Kroll?
A lot of times with this conformity, non-conformity, when you start trying to over-design it, I think you sometimes land up with something you didn't start out wanting. They're not making it any more non-conforming, which I appreciate. And I think it does a nice job of filling it in. It's one of these things I think greatly helps the homeowner without really affecting the neighborhood very much. So I'd be in favor of it.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, I think it's a very thoughtful design, and I see absolutely no negative impact to the neighborhood at all. It's all in the rear yard. They actually reduced the encroachment into the rear yard with the garage being removed and being pulled forward, and they're not making the condition any worse. So I think it's a good design.
Ms. Zukin?
I also like the fact that that garage is being pulled forward because it does increase the sight line in the back of the house, and the green space will look better, I think, for all the neighbors that way.
Mr. Ofac?
Well, I do think they could have designed it and it could have made it work with not encroaching more upon it. I actually think it allows the design to be a little bit more compelling and less boring if it was just all flat against there, the backside. And I think they have a unique hardship in that they have a shallow lot of only 100 feet. Normal lots are a lot deeper than that. So normally, if they had that extra 20 feet, this would not be an issue whatsoever. So I think they have a unique hardship with their lot coverage, and I'm all right with this.
Any other comments? All right, not seeing any, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All set, motion passes. Thank you, sir. All right, we move to the next item here, if I can find it. Item of new business, D4, case number 190617, public hearing on the appeal of GPD Group, petitioner and City of Royal Oak Building Authority, owner for the following variance. Waive 68 feet of the minimum required 75-foot setback from a public right-of-way to permit construction of a 75-foot monopole wireless communication support structure on a municipally owned property located at 3128 Rochester Road. Mr. Murphy? And that is Firehouse number 3, correct?
That it is. And this was in front of the Planning Commission on Tuesday. They did review it for site plan approval, and it was approved contingent upon obtaining the variance from you tonight. The site is improved with the fire station number 3. There's a small parking lot and a trash enclosure located behind the building. And the petitioner is proposing to erect a 75-foot monopole, essentially cell tower, in that general area behind the building. The existing trash enclosure would be extended, and it would make way for the equipment associated with the monopole. The ordinance does require that such support structures be set back equal to their height from the adjacent property line. And in this case, I'll reference the drawing that's provided. It's located 7 feet from the adjacent property line. And you'll see it referenced here on the drawing. Again, it's 75 feet in height. It's required to have a setback from that property line equal to its height. Obviously, there's no way for it to accomplish that, so they're seeking a waiver from that setback standard in order to place it on the property where they propose to do so.
Any questions? I'll start with Ms. Anderson.
Joseph, what is the height of the current pole that we have here at City Hall? Do you know? It's not really a pole, it's more like a scaffolding.
I mean, I'll tell the height of it, but I want to say it's far in excess of this.
I was gonna say, I thought
Okay.
it was over
Far in
100,
excess.
if I remember
Okay,
correctly.
okay. I'm just trying to get a visual of how
Yeah.
high something is.
A good visual would be the elevation that's provided.
Just twice
Yeah,
the
there's
height of the building.
The
Yep.
chimney, which is on the existing chimney at the fire station is about 53 feet tall according to their drawing. It actually does contain wireless equipment. And the monopole that they're placing next to it, you can see the scale in reference to the existing chimney on the building.
Well, it's a little, it threw me a little bit when I see the flag hanging from it, because I'm kind of guessing that fabric's not going to be there, but it's just going to be a pole with maybe some
The petitioner can.
sausages or whatever those things are. Is
that what they call them?
Round things. Sausages. The round things that collect information, you know. But yes, that. So I'll wait and ask the petitioner
Sure.
about the sausages.
And I think we'll move on to
There you
Mr.
go.
Kroll.
I remember my first go-around voting on that antenna over here, and that was that barely passed, but that was a safety issue for the fire department and the police department to have that communication. I found it weird that it came in front of the zoning board when it seemed to be a city safety issue, and but anyway, we approved it. Now we fast forward, and this seems like a commercial profitable effort. So who are these people working for? Who's getting this money? I mean, how does this all roll out? And why is this in front of us again? I mean, isn't this city business that could be done without the zoning board?
The ordinance doesn't differentiate whether it's a city facility, we'll say, or not. The petitioner can give you an indication as to their business structure.
Okay.
And I will say that it's pretty rare that we see new requests for new traditional cell tower equipment, monopoles that most people think of. Everything nowadays is usually attached to an existing structure, and under certain federal regulations, if it meets certain thresholds of being attached to an existing building or a slight addition to a building to increase the height a little bit, municipalities across the entire company essentially have to review it and approve it within a very short time frame. There's very strict federal regulations on it. But the construction of a new monopole, yeah, it's a different process.
All right, any other questions? Is the petitioner present?
My name is Ed Block. I'm with the engineering firm GPD Group, representing AT&T Mobility. So to answer your question, this is AT&T's effort to try to improve wireless coverage in the area. The current carrier on the building is T-Mobile. So as far as safety goes, AT&T has the same kind of safety issues as far as providing emergency service calls, as well as regular communications, which T-Mobile does the same. What we're proposing is a flagpole style tower. In other words, all the antennas are inside the structure. They're not going to be exposed. And the flag on it can be a flag. It can be either United States flag or it can be a flag of some other type. There is a flagpole on the front of the property that the fire station has, much smaller. But as indicated, we know the area. It's difficult to put up a regular cell tower. In this case, we're disguising it so that all the antennas are inside that you can't see. We provided, the hardship here is the fact that the property, if you were to show that plan view, has no place on it to meet the setbacks. I think if you go back to the one just prior to that, the front entrance has 3 bays for the fire trucks to come in. The back actually has a bay as well, so they can go in and out both directions without, so that's why there's no really space other than where we're putting it on the property to place the pole. We did provide a structural letter from the tower manufacturer that states that the tower would not fall, essentially stay within a fall radius of 0 feet.
I like that.
Based on the codes, and that's a state building code as well as the international building code. And of course, the actual drawings for that would come before the building department to be approved with not just the tower itself, but the foundation for it. The enclosure, the dumpster enclosure, the plan was to relocate the dumpster area over to the southeast corner and enlarge the dumpster area to accommodate the pole and the radio equipment, and then even have room for another equipment cabinet down at the bottom. And the tower is actually designed, or the pole is actually designed to accommodate another carrier's antenna. So say if Verizon wanted to come in, so they would be able to do something similar using the same structure without adding to it. We did do some photo simulations. We didn't turn those in, but if you wanted, I do have hard copies of those taken from different viewpoints. I think it does make an attractive structure that most people would not know would be a tower.
Well, actually, I'm looking for a little cell tower 101, if you will. So obviously, you're building this tower because you recognize that you have a service deficiency in the area that you would like to upgrade. And if this tower is approved, are you able to say that as a result of this new tower, it's gonna be able to serve a radius of 2,000 square feet, or 500, or 5,000 feet, or whatever it is? Because I guess my thought is that, you know, are you gonna need another tower to triangulate with, within X amount of distance and so forth?
I don't know if this got before you, it was what we call propagation maps,
Oh, I
which,
must not have saw that, okay.
okay, so what it does, and, yeah, okay. I would say maybe you have one before that?
That's the before and after.
Well, there's a before and after. So, make sure I'm in line with what you're,
This is existing.
Yeah.
okay, the area,
I didn't see any difference.
the very yellow, yeah, right where the
That's the site
marker is.
location.
That's the proposed location.
Okay.
The color chart in the top upper
yellow.
right-hand corner,
It's green.
the color green is meaning very good coverage. As it goes down into good coverage and fair coverage, and red is marginal. So what you're seeing in there is the green is very good coverage. Right where the site's at is considered good, but technology today has changed from what it was before. You can make a cell phone call there, but nowadays it's a data transfer as far as pictures, internet communications as well. And then on top of that is the fact that as more and more calls are made into existing sites, it kind of, I'm dating myself, but back when you had a switchboard operator that had to take a call and plug a line in, it kind of operate the way the cell towers operate, in a sense that there's a limited amount of number of calls that can come into that. And so as they get more and more bombarded with calls, their capability of providing the coverage that we're showing here diminishes. So what this does not only helps improve the coverage immediately to that area, but also helps take some of the load off of the other area.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is AT&T's coverage. Who covers that area now? And I'm asking that because I see a big lump of yellow, which means you don't get very good service right there. So somebody else must be getting service there, or a cell tower. And, I mean, you said that you would possibly lease out or another carrier to come in that tower, but why couldn't you then do that with somebody else within that area that would help you?
When we look, AT&T hires us to go out and find existing towers, existing structures first, because most communities, as you've indicated, prefer, as we call it, co-locating on an existing structure. In this case, there wasn't anything that they didn't already have a tower nearby. So if they were to put something on a tower or structure that was near one of the other towers, it's only kind of overlapping that area and not necessarily covering the rest. So now they still have a gap in there, but they do co-locate first. Now, they can't do it on T-Mobile's currently on that fire station right now, so there is their coverage. But it's just competition from a standpoint of the carriers out there. And as far as there's Verizon and there's Sprint, you know, as far as other companies that may not have the same kind of coverage either for the area. So there is an opportunity with AT&T's structure to accommodate another carrier, or possibly two, depending on what number of antennas
If
they
it was a
need.
competition to you, wouldn't you say, no, we don't want to share our tower?
Well, way back when they first started these jurisdictions, the government only licensed 2 companies per region or per market. And then as this industry came about and more people were using it, and became, instead of just the highways and the major cities, they found individuals, residents wanted to use it. And once the data came about in the internet, you know, my daughter doesn't even have a landline, as they call it, a phone on the wall. So the government decided they weren't going to limit the market, the licenses, to just 2 carriers per market. They opened it up to everybody. And that's why you get the advertisements on TV, you know, advertising what kind of rates they get and what kind of coverage you get. So you still have that opportunity. change your service if that carrier's in the area.
Okay.
Mr. Klatt, then Mr. Gavin.
I'm sorry, did you say you had a photo of an actual location, of an actual pole like this that we could see?
We did photo simulations.
Oh, simulations, okay.
Which-
Oh, like a rendering, that,
I have to share some of these. The numbers on the first sheet is a key that identifies where the individual shots are taken from, looking back at the fire station. And down in the bottom left-hand corner would be the number associated with the particular.
We can pass them around.
appreciate that.
Well, I do have
I don't think there's enough down there.
small ones.
While they're perusing the photos, can you describe whether this is, in the industry, a self-collapsing structure if something were to damage it, such as high wind?
One of the things I was thinking about bringing is, my company's in Ohio. Dayton, Ohio had a tornado come through just within this month, well, early this month or late last month. Our company had somebody go down and to investigate a tower. It was called a guide tower, which is a lattice structure that have guide wires that come off of it. This is a monopole, so they're two different, but the design requirements are the same. What he showed me pictures of was looking down the street and all the telephone poles and the lines that had fallen over into the street. The storage building that was next door that had the roof taken off of it, gutters from that was on the tower that had gotten blown onto it, the tower was still standing. So these are designed to withstand those high winds, whereas a lot of your ground structures, your existing one, the telephone poles that are right there, a lot of your ground buildings are not designed with those kind of wind requirements. So their tendency to collapse is going to be just in the most extreme case, and a case where who's going to be out there? I mean, if the concern is it falling on somebody, what is the likelihood of somebody being out and about with winds of that size?
Joe? I sit here wondering why the city's involved in this. Is this very lucrative? I mean, are we making a lot of money on this to allow people to put towers on our
I truly have I have not seen your agreement to see what the structure.
You weren't in on that?
To the best of my knowledge, my name is not on there.
Really?
You can add that? No. I have no idea. We do, you referred to the tower directly behind this building.
Well, that's a safety tower. That's a whole different thing. That's a communication tower that our police and fire are using. This is AT&T's.
But the city does sell space on that to carriers, just as well as we do the existing fire station.
So this is a business we're in then?
In some effect, yes.
Yeah, but the contract side is really for a different board. That's really not for us to consider. So, Mr. Gavin?
You were kind of getting to my question, or some of my question with regard to how the monopole has a zero fall height, because I presume that the reason for the setback being the height of the tower is that if it falls over, it doesn't hit a building. So have you taken a look at, absolute worst case scenario, how many buildings are in danger here or whatever? It seems to be a fairly wide open area in the back, since you got the parking lot for the school, and I know there's houses next to the fire station, but I don't know what's close by to, if we were to draw a 75-foot radius circle around that pole, do we know what's inside of it?
I just brought one.
All right.
And what it's showing is it does not would not hit any building other than the very corner of the little strip plaza just across the street to the north.
Okay.
And that's assuming absolute fall down. Most towers, we run structural analysis, our company runs structural analysis on The guide tower is your self-support, as we call it, tower that you have in the back, and the monopole towers. Towers are designed, the steel in them and the dimensions of the members and everything. When you add loading to a tower, when you design a tower, and we reanalyze it because they come back and they'll put some different antennas up there, they run down every one of those legs, every one of those braces, and they'll give a rating on it. So a tower is not uniform in the sense of strength-wise with the way the loading is on it. So the likelihood of it actually falling over in its entirety is, you can't say impossible because, you can't claim that a wind wouldn't get to that point. But essentially, if they were to collapse, and that's one of the things that even this letter states, they could actually design something in that kind of a weaker section, so to speak, so that if that were to exceed something, it would, fold over on itself. So half of that distance, so to speak.
Ms. Anderson?
You won't be having any of the saucers, AKA sausages, on the outside of the pole.
No.
It's all going to be inside, correct?
Right. There's two different things that you might be thinking of. One is the panel antenna, and those are anywhere from 8x4 to possibly 6 or 8 feet tall. And each one of those antennas, and those are actually antennas that are inside of this structure. Normally, you're going to see them outside, and to be honest, it's just because of the area they're trying to cover. A flagpole is the last option they want to use because it does not typically provide the best coverage, because normally you're going to put 3 to 9 to 12 antennas up for a particular carrier, 4 on 120 degrees apart. It's a triangular platform that you typically, if you see something out there, even the ones on the back, you probably see 2 or 3 of those antennas for a particular carrier or company. The other thing is the round one is a microwave dish. Those are typically only involved when you're trying to send a signal, a very precise signal from one tower to another one. Emergency towers will have that on the towers, one station to another, fire station, in case the telecommunication lines underground get disrupted, get cut, then they still have a means of sending a signal to a tower that does not have that problem. So the communication can go on, but that's not what's required for AT&T.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's, oh, I didn't see my Paul, I'm sorry.
So this particular ordinance is designed as a safety issue, not a design issue or anything. Has this monopole been in use anywhere else, and are you familiar with any tests that have been done on the actual monopoles like this?
As far as tests, I've been working at my company for going on 29 years. Over 20 of that, I've been in the telecommunication side. And I've not known of any of the monopole style towers to come down. And the towers that may have collapsed, as I mentioned, were more like the lattice tower in the back or maybe a guide tower. But again, that's the extremist amount. Again, these are designed per the requirements of the federal government. It's listed as just technically speaking called TIA 222-G, currently adopted by the IBC International Building Code. So that doesn't even include the safety factor that goes into the design. So other than the fact that I'm sure there's tests done on it, but I think the proof is the fact that they're standing. And if you have heard tornadoes or hurricanes out west or down Florida, a lot of times the only communication they have is because those towers are still there.
And quite frankly, I'm somebody who sells structural steel for a living, and I've read those government contracts. I'm sure he would back me up on this. They overbuild those specs. It's almost to the point where it's laughable. So of all the concerns I'm thinking about, that thing falling over is about concern 47 in my mind, frankly.
And this one even has less of a problem because if something were to come off of a tower, it usually would be an antenna on the ones that you have in back here. Since this is, everything's inside, it's just even less for something to snag, so to speak.
Where are some of these around? Do we have any in Royal Oak or close to here?
I'm from Ohio, so unfortunately, I couldn't tell you. I can send you pictures, or I can send a picture of sites that we have. We put one on school property right behind the scoreboard, within 20 miles of where our office is. So I know that one's been up for a minimum of 10 years, maybe more. I've known of no issues with that whatsoever.
Okay, well, let's move this along. I'm going to ask you to take a seat, sir, real quickly so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this matter? Yes, sir.
My name's Mike. I'm an engineer from college days, but I'm just curious, I guess from the petitioner, the idea of putting a cell tower above firemen in a schoolhouse freaks me out a little bit in terms of, you know, the irradiation of the kids. I don't know what the science in that is, but I'd like to know more about the impact of putting the cell towers, well, in my mind, above valuable people. And the second thing is, you said there's a T-Mobile location on the building. Why aren't they using that spot?
Questions are noted. Anybody else? All right, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table.
Can I ask a question? Would the firehouse itself have been noticed, I would imagine? So, no firefighters, okay, thank you.
All right, well, we are on this side of the table now.
Well, Joe, what was planning's attitude on this? Did you get any? You said they approved it, right?
Oh, the planning commission?
Was this one in planning or am I?
Yes, I went to the planning commission
Tuesday.
Tuesday night, this past Tuesday.
I didn't see it, so.
It was not a public hearing since it's permitted use. If this proposal was set back off the property line, the appropriate distance wouldn't even be here in front of you today.
Mr. Ophek,
I'll make a motion to grant the variance as requested.
we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Mr. Ophek?
This is definitely a unique circumstance. Normally don't see. I don't, in trying to give more coverage, I don't see anywhere in that general vicinity where they can go and place it without it falling on somewhere within its height. I do agree. It has probably been overly engineered to make sure something like that does not happen. And the design actually looks quite nice, and trying to hide it as a large giant flagpole similar to like you sometimes see along the highway. Like I think Belt Tire has that big, huge, giant flagpole. So I don't have any concern about it taking away the design or the appearance of the property and negatively affecting other properties around it. So because of that, I have no problem voting for it.
Mr. Gavin, any follow-up?
I agree with Mr. Ophek's comments, and especially, I'm originally from the Farmington Hills area, and I always tend to think of at Northwestern Highway in Orchard Lake, there is this.
The pine tree?
The pine tree. I called it the redwood of West Bloomfield or whatever, and it's just ugly. And this is so much better. I mean, it looks big and thick for a flagpole, but it's still much better looking. And I think that there's not much else in that area that they can do. That's actually a rather unique spot in that it's only got 2 buildings within range, of the 75 feet. So I think this is a good spot, and I think this is a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I kind of view this as a necessary evil. I think the only thing I hate looking more than cell towers is not having cell service, so can't have it both ways. All right, any other comments?
Well, I wonder,
Yes, sir.
could we ask the petitioner to address that concern, that safety concern that was mentioned in public comment about,
Yeah, do you want to speak about the
as
types
an
of
engineer in
radio?
telecommunications, maybe you have some knowledge about that?
He asked 2 questions. one was
Are
safety.
are the type of radio waves used on these cell towers potentially harmful to people?
I'll go ahead and share, but I know the federal government has basically set a standard that a zoning board cannot deny, I guess, or make a decision based on health and safety. But this is the idea that the antennas are at the top of the tower. The emissions, the amount of emissions, they're low powered to begin with, so the amount of emissions decreases exponentially as you go down to the ground. So the amount of emissions that you're going to receive down at even at the second level of that building, like I said, T-Mobile's already on it, so it's not like nobody's turning green in there or anything of that nature. They've done the studies, the federal government's done the studies, and they say that that is not an issue. You can look it up on the internet, you're going to find opposition to that and all sorts of stories. The fact that this is a cell phone tower, like I said, has low emissions. Station towers that have been around communities for years and years used to advertise 100 megawatt power.
CKLW.
These are 100. So you would get more from your cell phone if it was a bad cell phone or standing in front of your microwave. If it was a leak, then they would get from there or anybody around it.
Well, thank you for the clarification. All right, with no other questions, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, you're all set. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate your time. All right, so we're at item number, are we switching fearless leaders? All right, we'll wait for Ms. Sherhart to join us.
Did you get briefed on how to say my last name? I was thinking about it.
All right. Item number D5, case number 190618, public hearing on the appeal of MECA Group LLC, petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, this is a use variance. B, to waive 24 of the minimum required 66 off-street parking spaces to permit conversion of a former automobile dealership into a multi-tenant building for medical office, fitness centers, training studios, and a massage therapy establishment, which is defined as an adult-oriented business located at 2605 West 14 Mile Road. Ms. Sherhart.
All right. So this is a request, both a use variance as well as a non-use variance. So the property is located at the southwest corner of West 14 Mile Road and Delamere Boulevard. It was most recently a automobile dealership, but it has been vacant for some time. It is a two-story building, and the applicant, which is the Mecca Group, proposes to convert the building into a multiple-tenant fitness studio and medical office complex. 3 of the 4 suites would be occupied by fitness centers or athletic conditioning studios, and then the 4th would be a medical office. The reason it's before you is that one of the tenants, Tricovery, offers massage therapy as part of their services. Massage establishments are defined as an adult-oriented business in our zoning ordinance if they are not conducted as part of the office activities of a doctor or a chiropractor. As such, having this use is the reason that the use variance request is before you today. And given its location, it is in a general industrial zone district. Typically, any adult-oriented business, there are buffering requirements from sensitive uses such as residential neighborhoods, religious institutions, churches, etc. Given the location of this property, there actually is no need for any waivers to these buffers. Typically, it's 150 feet from a residential zone district, 1,000 feet from a religious institution, school, etc. Given the location, that's not necessary. So the only request in terms of the use is just its existence, as in the general industrial zone district, a adult-oriented business is not permitted. The next variance is relative to parking. So the use that they're proposing is more parking intensive than the previous use of the property. So, sorry, I'm just trying to go to a site plan for the audience here. Maybe instead of scrolling, I'll work out these technical difficulties for the next time. Let me get to a site plan. So, let's do this. Okay. All right, so the property has 42 parking spaces on site. The parking need is 66 spaces, so the petitioner is seeking a waiver for 24 of the required parking spaces. The way that was determined for the fitness studios, the parking is 1 space for every 4 people as determined by the building occupancy. And then for the medical office, the calculation is different. It's 1 space for every 200 square feet of floor area. And this request, or rather, the petitioner did go before the Planning Commission in May for site plan approval, and it was given just contingent upon the approval of the variances that they are seeking this evening.
Any questions for Ms. Sherhart at this time? All right, not seeing any. Are the petitioners present?
Hello.
Good evening.
I'm David Murphy. I work for DRN Architects. This is Jeff Kahn. He is the owner of Tricovery, and this is Stan Brish. He is the developer and one of the owners. Jeffrey's also one of the owners. You covered it quite well. There are a couple things I want to just touch upon as far as the unique nature of the business model. So the 3 tenants that are going to be in the space work hand in hand to provide a single customer experience. So, for example, you could come into the space and get personal training at Mecca, then go see a chiropractor, and then go get a professional athletic massage. These 3 businesses have worked together, how many years? Quite a while, right?
Over 5 years.
Yeah, over 5 years at a different location in Novi, and are looking to expand to the Royal Oak area. The parking requirement, because it's so unique, the way it works is Mecca takes up the majority of the square footage in the building, and they have one-on-one personal training. This is not your typical LA Fitness or Lifetime Fitness, and you cannot go into the facility without a personal training appointment. They plan on having a max of 6 trainers on staff, which means there can only be 6 clients in the facility at a time in their tenant space, and then 1 or 2 receptionists. So that gives us 14 people. The next tenant space would be Tricovery, and they are planning on having 5 therapists and 5 clients, which gives us 10. And the third would be the soft tissue solutions. That's the chiropractor, and they're planning on having 1 doctor, 3 clients, and 1 receptionist, which is 5 people, which gives us much lower numbers than what the ordinance requires. And we believe that we don't really fall within what's prescribed within the ordinance because it's so unique. So that kind of accounts for the parking. I started to touch on Tricovery's business model as well, but I'll let Jeff kind of talk you through what they do.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Jeff Kong, the owner of Tricovery Massage and Flexibility. At Tricovery, when I started, I really had a passion for working with athletes and working with injuries. Those are my 2 things. I really wanted to get away from the traditional massage, spa, relaxation side of things. It just wasn't what I was really passionate about learning about and getting into. So when I started the company 10 years ago, I really wanted to establish a higher level of professionalism for the careers of massage therapists. You want the best, you got to pay the best. So I do that with my therapists. And I also send them for a lot of continuing education so we can keep enhancing our skill. And the clientele that we demand requires that type of enhancements with our growth in our careers and our professional. So that's why we've kind of hit this niche of elite athletes, professional athletes, people who are really serious about competing, but also we get a lot of referrals from physical therapists and doctors who help with chronic pain, back issues, hip issues, along those lines. And that's pretty much our niche. So if somebody does call and they just want the traditional relaxation, that's very rare that we do get those calls, but when they do, we actually refer them out just because it's not our specialty. And that's how special we are as far as what we focus on. So that's the kind of been my dream since I started the company. And I'm really honored to actually bring it out this way from Novi, just because we do have so many clients that come from this side of town and some reason there's this mental block of 275 and even Orchard Lake. Nobody can go west of Orchard Lake, and on that side they can't go east of Orchard Lake. So some reason this will open up quite a bit, just because we've been doing some marketing, and right now we do have a Birmingham location that we work out of, and it's just one little treatment room that we work out of. And so with that, the networking has kind of grown, and now we're ready to expand and kind of grow from there. So. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Any questions for the petitioner? Ms. Anderson?
So I'm looking at the aerial view, and then I see the architectural renderings. What happened to that chunk of land that's accessed off 14 miles? Is there no parking there? I guess I'm a little confused as to what that's being used for.
Between the building and 14 Mile?
That right there. Well,
So this
right
is
underneath
another
that.
building,
Yeah,
is it
that's
not?
that's another establishment.
So then go to the aerial view. Maybe I'm just looking at it wrong. Because it looks like there's a driveway and it looks like it's S-shaped, or, like
So I guess the top part of the L and that S,
Uh-huh.
that's another business, and their buildings are actually not connected. There's like this much space in between them.
One big tire stuck between the.
Yes. I just looked down there today, yeah. And that's like a
still there.
glass and mirror place. Yeah.
Birmingham.
So that
Our building
driveway is not
rectangular.
yours, the one that you
Correct.
access off 14 Mile.
Correct. Our access would be off of Delamere.
Right, I know that, but I was wondering this one right here.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Kroll?
So, at the worst possible scenario, how many people, how many employees will be working there that need us?
5 treatment rooms, which means I can max have 5 therapists there. Because
All right, so that's that 5. Now, how many, that's your massage or that's the exercise?
for recovery, we'd have 5 therapists and 5 clients. That would be our max.
Okay, so that,
It was 29 total based on those numbers that you had given earlier.
In your packet, there's
There's a breakdown.
analysis of their current, which is, we're really mirroring the same thing.
Might have been for
So you have
planning
Mecca with
commission.
a total of 7 employees and 7 clients, for a total of 14. With Tri-Covery at 5 and 5 at 10. And then Dr. Slota, she actually has a facility, by the way, I'm Stan Brish, I'm one of the owners, but I'm really only here because I was a client of theirs and 9 months ago couldn't walk. And between Tri-Covery, Mecca Training, and Dr. Karen Slota, I can almost jog down the hallway. So the only reason as a developer that I ended up here is because their model is so unique and so unbelievable. I said, I'd like to be part of it. So that's why I'm here. But their numbers, and Karen has a facility in West Bloomfield and one in Farmington Hills. She is in West Bloomfield, but she'll move to Royal Oak 2 days a week. So having built millions of square feet of industrial and commercial buildings, the last thing I want is somebody calling saying, we're parking and spilling out. I wouldn't have brought it here if I thought for any reason whatsoever, we were trying to shoehorn them in there, I would have found another facility. Did I answer your question?
You didn't finish with Dr. Slota, though, how many spaces, how many people she'll have?
Oh, in hers, in Karen's, she has, where to go here, soft tissue, she is herself, 1 employee at most, and 3 patients at any one time. So when you look at the summary at the bottom of this page, it's a total of 41, if at a peak, everybody was full, which probability of that is small, since most of the professional athletes, they've got practice in the morning, they're at their Royal Oak facility working out or wherever they're at. Then, so the morning guys, the old men like me, I go in the morning with a bunch of old guys, and then the athletes seem to come in, and then they're gone to their afternoon work, and the high school students will come in, and everybody is one-on-one. I've been going there for over a year. My son went there, he's a college athlete, and I have never been impeded to say I feel cramped. So it's a pretty unique operation, I gotta say.
I've invested in companies like this before, and we would have loved to have 46 parking spaces filled. So.
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
So I understood that the training is exclusively a one-on-one training. There is not a situation where it's a two-on-one training.
No, they don't do any memberships, they don't do classes, they don't do groups. You can only train there if you have a trainer there with you. In fact, I had a friend that was in town and wanted to work out, and I was like, yeah, go ahead and work out. And so I called David, the owner of Mecca, and he goes, look, he's welcome to come in, and I won't charge him, but he's got to be with a trainer. And he goes, because the second one person works out without a trainer, everybody else is like, hey, can I come in and work out too on my own and just use your program? And it creates all this questioning. So he has just set it up where you have one trainer and one client and done. And it's been a very successful business model for them.
All right, any other questions? All right, not seeing any, I'm going to ask you gentlemen to take a seat real quickly so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this issue? All right, not seeing any hands, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Curtis?
I'd like to move to grant both variances requested, both the use variance and the parking variance.
I support that.
Any follow-up, Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, again, the use variance, it's an odd ordinance to begin with. It's certainly not any concern about boundaries. And, athletes and massage for sport and recovery and healing and injury, wonderful. Wish I was still an athlete. What a great business this is. The parking, I agree with this discussion we've seen here, that we're not going to see, 50 people show up all at once in this facility when everything is one-on-one. And a chiropractor who has 3 patients at a time is running pretty fast from room to room. That'd be the exception to one-on-one. And that's still only 3-on-1. I don't think we have a problem with parking.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know this industry fairly well, and a one-on-one training, I think our parking is high in all cases. I think it gets kind of ridiculous in this situation because it's using factors that I don't think really fit that well in this business. Like I say, if there were 46 cars there all the time, these guys would be making a lot of money. The whole massage thing, tomorrow morning, I'm gonna be at the chiropractor at 9:30. I'm gonna be at massage therapy at 11. So I guess I fall right into that, whatever taboo thing we think massage industry is here. I think it's a great program. I think that what they're gonna do to this building's always been kind of ugly in my mind and kind of stood out on 14, and what they're proposing doing is certainly gonna enhance the neighborhood. And, this is a billion-dollar industry that we're just kind of ignoring a little bit here in Royal Oak. So this is the second one in 2 months that we've seen. I imagine it's not going to be the last. And I think we have to have a different position on the new massage. I can appreciate when the rules were made and the problems we were having. I lived through that. That has totally changed today, and I think we as a city need to really visit that. So I'm in total support of this.
All right, any other comments? All right, not seeing any, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. You're all set. All right. So that moves us right along to item of new business D6, case number 190619, public hearing on the appeal of Yuri Logvin, petitioner and owner for the following variances. Waive 177 square feet of the minimum required 6,000 square foot lot area for parcel A. B, to waive 1,215 square feet of the minimum required 6,000 square foot lot area for parcel B, and C, to waive 8 foot of the minimum required 50-foot lot width for parcel B to permit a land division located at 708 North Campbell Road. Ms. Sherhart?
Okay, just gonna get to good image here. All right, so this is a request for 3 variances to facilitate a land division at 708 North Campbell Road. The subject property is located on the east side of Campbell between Forest and East Farnham Avenue. The site is comprised of 5 platted lots and half of an adjacent vacated alley along the east of the property. The property is irregular in shape, which you can't really see here, but it does narrow as you move east. So the rear yard lot line is about, let's see, 93 feet wide, and measured at the front property line, it is about 100 feet wide. Presently, there is a single-family home with a detached garage. The petitioner proposes to demolish the detached garage and then split the parcels to potentially build another single-family home on a new parcel. So let me go to that image. So the proposed parcel A, which would have the existing home, would be 53 feet wide, 110 feet deep, and 5,823 square feet in area. The requirement for the zone district is 50 feet wide, 100 feet deep, and 6,000 square feet in area. So parcel A would require a variance just for the lot area to waive 177 square feet of the minimum required 6,000 square feet of lot area. Parcel B would be 42 feet wide. As it is irregular in shape, we're measuring that 42 feet at the required front yard setback. So measured here, the parcel is 42 feet wide, and so they're seeking a variance of 8 feet to the required 50 feet minimum width, and the parcel would be 4,785 square feet in area, so they would be seeking a waiver of 1,215 square feet. As you can see on this next drawing, the petitioner has submitted conceptual floor plans and elevations for a new structure on parcel B. We have reviewed those and don't see that any variances are required to construct the concept. So before you today are just those variances relative to the land division itself.
This house is currently conforming, right? As it sits?
Yes, it is. Yes, so it's presently just a single-family home on a rather large lot. I mean, given if the parcel were not irregularly shaped, you could split it into if you split it, it could potentially be 2 50-foot parcels that would meet the zoning requirements. Although I think they are proposing the split as they are to allow for the existing home to maintain conforming setbacks from this new property line, so.
Mr. Elphak?
Well, actually, it looks like the front could easily be the 50 foot, the back would be more like 49 feet. The question I have is, how does this lot coverage relate to the surrounding
Sure, yeah.
percentages?
So we did do that analysis, so to review anytime a potential land division comes before us, first we do an analysis of all the homes that are on the same block. So for an interior lot, that's going to be all the interior lots on the same side of the street and across the street. And we see whether the two potential parcels are greater than 50% or more of those other lots. So we did that analysis, and both of these potential parcels already meet for depth, so we didn't consider that. But on width and on area, the threshold was not met. I'd be happy to pull up that spreadsheet right now, since I don't have those numbers handy, and I could let you know.
Yes, please, that'd be
Yeah.
helpful. I know from driving past it all the time, because I always drive past it to and from work, it definitely seems in the minority of if you were to have it under 50 feet, but.
It would be in the minority to be less than 50 feet. So let's see. For parcel A, so that's the one that is maintaining the existing home. It was only larger for lot area than about 31% of the homes on the block. And then for parcel B, which would be this new parcel, yeah, it's only as wide as about 19% of the lots on the block, and same with area. And so due to this analysis, the request comes before the zoning board of appeals, because as, the planning staff does have the discretion to permit a land division if the 50% rule is met. It allows for some flexibility.
Ms. Anderson, then Mr. Klatt.
When I was looking at the property today and pulled in the drive there, I noticed that there's a stop work order because of no permit. Was that issued before they came, or because something was found out, before they applied for something, or do you have any history on that?
I'm not aware.
Okay.
No.
Yes, sir.
Does that percentage factor in the large lot on Forest, the corner of Forest and Campbell? Because that's
Corner lots are not included.
not included.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, is the petitioner present?
So, there's been a couple changes to the plan, if I may speak. And
you are, sir?
I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous.
That's okay.
My name is Yuri Logvin.
Thank you.
So I'm the owner of the property, and we bought this house, and we and my wife, we love the house. But the problem is, and that's come back to the stop work order also, I was planning to fix the house, bring it up and everything. But we decided to open up the walls to see what's behind it, because I was willing, I wanted to make it a little bigger. It's 14-something square feet house, so it's on the smaller size, which is kind of typical for Royal Oak. So we opened up the walls, and we realized that it's structurally so bad that there is nothing can be done to that house. I mean, maybe anything can be done, but it's almost impossible to fix the house. And I talked to the structural engineer, to the architect, and everyone has the same opinion that pretty much there is nothing you can do with the house. You have to demo the existing structure. Because I have some pictures, and there is no way you can bring it to the code. Like, some spans are 13-something feet long, and according to my guys, the code requires for 11 feet, and so on, so forth. Like, whoever built the house seems like they have no idea what the framing was. And the problem with the lot is that it's irregular shape. It's not rectangular. So, I looked at my neighbor's house, and I cannot even talk to them because they pretty much sitting on that line if we try to move the line to make it rectangular. So the idea in here is, another problem, it's sitting on the Campbell. Construction might be a little more costlier, while the actual house is gonna be on the lower side. So what I'm trying to do is, I would like to demolish the existing structure. If you allow me to split the lot, I would like to have a chance to build 2 more new homes, in the mid-size, which Royal Oak is quite lagging, like those 2,000 square feet homes are on the short side around Royal Oak area.
Well, Mr. Logman, if you're proposing, because our plan showed that the existing house is going to remain. If you're going to demolish that house, are you opposed to?
It is unsafe. I would love to keep it.
Let me finish my question. If it's your intention to demolish that house, are you opposed to creating 2 50-foot lots along Campbell? Because there's a real hardship in the fact that the lot is at an angle and back.
So, yeah, my understanding how it works is that the front yard is gonna be, I have 100 feet on the front side, but the back side is 93.
Right.
So if I can demolish, I'm still not gonna comply with that 50-50 requirement, do I? I mean, I can move so right now, because of the existing structure, we're proposing 53 and 47 at the front.
Right, but you can't save the existing structure any longer.
Yeah, I cannot save it, and so I can just only add additional 3, so I can keep 50 on one lot, and the other one is still gonna
We're
be
talking about the
47.
front, the camel side, not the back. What can you, if you knock the house down, can you do 50-foot lots in the front?
Yeah, on the Campbell side, yeah, I can do 50-50, yes.
That was your question,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
But then again, the issue is I'm not gonna comply with the total square footage.
width,
because-
though.
We're okay with that.
Because it's 109 feet wide, feet deep.
Right, well, that's something you can't control. Did you have a comment? I'm sorry.
Well, my question, we weren't aware of this change, so I'm
Right.
just wondering,
It came up like a
Can
week
it-
ago when,
Okay.
when the structure, I've been
Sure,
trying
sure.
to work it out. I really, I love the house. It has the character, but unfortunately, it's, 107 years old, and whenever they build it, I don't know, they had a different idea.
Mr. Kroll?
What is your time frame on all this?
I'm pretty much ready to roll.
Would it throw you back a lot if we asked you to come back next month with the proper drawings of what you're proposing? Because we're guessing a little bit up right now. What you've told us isn't what we're
I mean,
looking
I would like to kick off the whole thing as soon as possible. I mean, if you have to, you have to, but I would like to start as soon as possible.
well, is the issue that they can only vote on the lot split as proposed? So if in your new circumstances, you wanted to alter where that line is I don't think it's possible for you guys to
Well,
vote on that?
that's my point. I
or-
mean, so what we can't do is sit here and design your plan for you. You have submitted a plan to us, but you submitted a plan to us before realizing that your current house cannot be saved.
Yeah, I didn't know about it.
And there's, in my opinion, and I don't want to speak for the entire board, but you have a 100-foot wide lot in front, and the fact that it's cut at an angle, somebody at City Hall signed off on at some point in time. So if you were to come back with new plans showing 2 50-foot lots and 2 new builds versus one that's under and one that's over,
Is there some way we can vote on this tonight, and then administratively, you guys can manage to what we
That's a
approve?
Joseph question, or
Mr. Murphy?
or a Ryan question.
You're correct in that the petitioner's presented something that you can consider. We're in conversation of where that lot line may change without seeing something that defines it. It's very challenging for us to provide you with assurance as to how we might be able to proceed forward administratively, or whether it would have to come back in front of the board for an entirely different variance.
Also.
I don't know the distance across the rear of the property line. Ms. Sherhart had referenced the fact that it's cut on an angle and that we measured the width because of that. If anyone may remember the variance request on Vincetta, where we defined where we measure the lot width at on an irregular shaped lot, not a perfectly rectangular lot. That applies to this particular case, and we measured that front lot line at the minimum required front yard setback, 25 feet. I don't know whether the petitioner would be able to create 2 50-foot wide lots measured at that minimum 25-foot front yard setback, not at the front lot line closest to the
But it
sidewalk.
would still require variances
May
for the
very
width
well.
and potentially for the area, if the
Yeah,
line
the area is gonna
moves.
be
May I ask also,
Mr. Curtis?
a question for staff? If the petitioner were to come back with a different set of variants or different proposal, is that the same case number, or does it cost the petitioner more money to change the plan in midstream?
If it's a different variance request, then we would have to notice it as a brand-new public hearing. Would be a new case, a new fee.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be, you can always grant less of a variance request
Same.
than was presented to you today, but you can't grant a greater or different variance request.
So wouldn't we be granting a lesser one if we,
I couldn't.
you couldn't tell because you don't have the drawings, so. okay.
There was a lot of conversation there, and I believe if you asked three or four of us, we may envision something different than what the others would. Because I certainly believe that I'm envisioning something different than perhaps you are. Without knowing for certain in a revised survey, I hesitate to provide any assurance whatsoever.
I'm really hesitant to make these people pay like twice.
That's what I'm trying to avoid. Let's go to Mr. Opak.
Is it possible for us to grant it as, splitting the lots as long as it's to the midpoint at the front as well as the back, so the midline is angled, and therefore it's equal space either spot?
It may be advantageous if the board chooses to hold a public hearing, and if you believe that the petitioner would like to present something different to staff, we can certainly, you could postpone the item. We could look at a revised concept from the petitioner, determine with the petitioner whether that would necessitate a new variance request. And if it did, we would place them on an upcoming agenda. Or if it didn't, we could bring it back to you and you could grant less of a variance request if that's indeed the case.
Well, what would that entail? I mean, give me an example of where they would have to come back with another proposal. Because they're going to knock the house down, does that make it a totally different proposal?
Not necessarily. Well, if he's capable of creating two 50-foot wide lots that obviously can meet the 100-foot depth and 6,000 square feet in area, we'd be able to administratively approve two vacant lots in that condition. But again, that because it's not a perfectly rectangular lot, we would measure that front yard setback at the 25-foot. We would measure the lot width at the 25-foot setback without a survey to see what that distance is across at 25 feet up. It's impossible to know.
The survey is there, we just move it 3 feet or.
Well, what we're trying to avoid is, because what you're,
understand and
what
appreciate
could, we
the
don't want
work.
you to have to pay twice to come in front of us.
Get it.
And what it sounds like we're gonna end up having to do to, I think to appease everybody concerned is that what you submit to us would be different than what you've submitted to us today, because again, we didn't know that the house was unsalvageable. So
I
that's,
found out that about a week ago.
no, but nobody's saying it's your fault. I mean, these
I know,
things happen,
I know.
you rip open walls, you never know what you're gonna
Yep.
find, so. I mean, Mr. Murphy, I mean, from our perspective, would you just like us to table this for a month and then he can come in and speak with your department and see what you guys can hammer out?
Well, if you can answer a question as to what the distance across the rear of the property line, the west property line is, do you know that number based on the survey?
It looks like 53 plus 39.82.
So 92.82.
So that gets us to less than 100, so it's impossible to create two 50-foot wide lots. If indeed the front measurement, the east, is 100, is that greater than 100?
By
.22.
Yeah.
So statistically, it's probably impossible to
doesn't-
create two
doesn't look like-
50-foot wide lots at the 25-foot front yard setback. So it would necessitate a new variance.
So we
We're looking
can't
for your
say that.
guidance. What's our move, sir?
What can we
You're
vote on here tonight?
welcome to hold a public hearing.
Okay.
If you're in agreement, you can postpone the request. The petitioner can provide to us a revised survey illustrating the new concept. If it's indeed what we're referring to, it probably necessitates a new variance request, and it would come back to you as and be noticed as a brand-new variance. The postponed item could simply be withdrawn.
Withdrawn, okay,
Would
so.
he get charged then for that new variance?
Yes, they would. It would be a
can't vote
new
on that.
variance request.
So it's either that or we.
It would be a new variance request.
It's either that or we grant the request as presented before us today.
And the petitioner would have the ability to have two vacant lots. They may not be what they envision, what he envisions on creating them in size, but they would be based exactly on what's proposed in front of you.
All right, well, I haven't opened the
And
public
could
hearing yet.
we, not saying that he's lying to me, but saying that you could only split it if it's predicated on the one house being torn down?
If you felt that was relevant,
Okay.
I see what he's going for, so.
So we don't have the authority to say, as long as it's 50 feet at the front, at the street, that we will grant the variance.
Correct.
We cannot do that.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Well, sir, let me do this, because we have noticed your hearing today, so let me have you take a seat real quickly, see if there's anybody in the audience that wants to speak with us. We'll bring you back up, we'll see if we can hammer this thing out. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this issue? You're back.
I'm back. Mike, again, I was just curious. I heard.
What's your last name, sir?
Piskey.
Thank you.
I heard no word of hardship, and I thought, why not build one house?
Thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Kroll?
I'm going to try something here. I'm going to make a motion to approve this as presented.
We have a motion?
Just for discussion, yeah, I can't speak to it. I'll second for discussion's sake.
All right.
It's a little bit of a stretch, knowing that we have some new information that's shown up since this was applied for. I was again on the fence with this as presented, so it's, it's Campbell Road, it's people driving fast, it's, I thought if anywhere it would work, and I wasn't totally sure I was gonna vote for it or not, but I think we're getting close enough, and I really hate to see this couple have to come back and give us more money to accomplish the same thing, so.
I'm sort of torn on this. On one hand, there is no, it's a minority-sized site if it gets split up. There's some good lots right there in that area, larger than 50 foot. This is sort of a financial hardship, but it is also sort of a unique hardship in that they have that angled portion there that had it been straight, it would have been 2 50-foot lots over, straight off the front at least, I should say. If it was straight off the back, they'd have to come before us no matter what. And it's also unique in that he's got a house now he can't even live in, no matter supposedly as he spoke. So if we denied it, he's basically out of a house and can do nothing but build one big house, which is fine. So I'm really torn on this aspect. If anything, I'd say maybe it could happen if you guaranteed it was being torn down, or if you were splitting it right down the middle, but Joseph made it sound like you gotta come back for new variance if you're doing that, so.
I think I saw Ms. Anderson next.
Well, if we approve it the way it is, it's going to always be crooked and kind of, one lot's always gonna be bigger, one lot's always gonna be much smaller. So I'm not going to approve it the way Mr. Cole suggested, but I will. I know it's a hardship to the, I mean, financial isn't, but when you get into these projects, there's always gonna be things that come up, and this happens to be one of those things. So I would look at it again, once it came back, and we could actually see the lot lines and see what exactly we're voting on. That's my feeling.
Let me go to Mr. Curtis, I think I saw Mr. Klatt.
Yeah, I won't be in support of that motion either. I think the irregularity of the lot presents hardship because you cannot split and without a variance. But a 53-47 split up front seems like a bad split, given the fact that the existing structures need to come down according to the petitioner, and more of a more equal 50-50 lots next to each other is a better concept. And I think it mitigates the idea of non-conformity to do so. But I have a question, because I heard somebody say, and it was an interest thought to me, that we can vote on a lesser variance tonight than what's been proposed. So, for instance, we could theoretically propose a more 50-50 split, which would be a lesser variance, because what we're asking for here, and I don't have the exact numbers, is, the 3 feet. A 47-foot lot is 3 feet under in the front, and then there'd be a greater variance of square footage we're giving on that lot than if we were to split these in a more equitable way.
You just said right there, greater, so therefore you actually aren't, you're making the one lot lesser, yes, but the other lot would be greater of variance needed.
Okay, however, if not, would it be a greater variance needed on a 50-foot in the front? Because there is a coverage issue on parcel A, right? So you're making a greater variance on the coverage issue on parcel A by lessening it those 3 feet.
If, right now, parcel A, as I read it, it's 177 feet under what is, or over, under what is required for the 6,000.
Even with the 53-foot.
Right, so if you move it 3 feet, you're now increasing that, so.
So you can't get away with that.
Correct.
Thanks.
I mean, this is a unique situation. I mean, imagine yourself, standing in the middle of Campbell, looking between the proposed house and existing house number 634. We know because we're looking at this survey that that the property line is cut at an angle, but for all visual purposes, the houses look like they're in line, and nobody would ever know that you have an irregularly shaped lot. And again, one of my pet peeves when I look at these things is, somebody in City Hall signed off on this thing. I mean, who knows why? But at the end of the day, you're gonna have 3 houses in a row. They're all gonna be linear in a sense. And basically, from the street, you're talking about a lot width that's 47 plus feet on a 100-foot long parcel that's gonna contain 2 homes, and you're talking visually about 2 foot 8 inches. I just don't see how anybody's ever gonna know the difference. You made the argument that, 47 versus 53. I'm saying if you're sitting in the middle of Campbell, short of having, measuring equipment with you, nobody would ever know the difference. I think there's a real hardship in the fact that this land was cut the way that it was. And there's, and I don't think I really want to make this petitioner come back in front of us because there are some circumstances that were clearly beyond his control. Mr. Kroll.
I look at this and say, okay, this has just gotten better with knocking that house down, because with the house there's constraint about what you can do with the 2 lots. I made the motion assuming that as that house comes down, 2 50-foot lots on the frontage anyway, and if they knew that up front and had come to us and said, this house going down 50 feet in the front, 40 whatever in the back, it would be no brain. I mean, we'd approve that in a second. So I'm hitching a little bit, trying to not have these people come back and pay, and I don't know how to really put that in words or how we motion that out, but that, I'm seeing 2 50-foot lots on Campbell, and no one's gonna ever know what's in the back, and the hardship is an unusual piece of land, shaped land, so that's kind of where I started this from.
I'm gonna go to Mr. Ofack and then Mr. Gavin.
Well, to respond to Alan, they can't, if you, like I explained to Paul, unless you agree to it as you proposed with the 53 and the 47, that's the only way you get them not coming back. Anything moving that 53 anywhere close to 50, you've now increased what's required for that variance, which is a new variance, as Mr. Murphy proclaimed. So no matter what, it's either you grant it as it is, or they have to come back.
Let staff chime in.
Well, I was
real
gonna say,
quick.
in terms of arithmetic, though, wouldn't we be looking at the cumulative variance? So if we're getting them both more on par, wouldn't each variance request actually be less or the same?
I'd say Joseph would respond to that one. But before I finish, the other point is even if we do split this, you're starting to change the character of the neighborhood by introducing 2 lots that are minority in there, and thus later on, larger lots could be split, better chance of, because we've changed the character. Not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm just bringing up a point. This is a very double-sized lot right now.
But there's no denying the fact that they have 100-foot of frontage on Campbell.
I'm not denying that if there was more, if it was 2 straight lines, it would be systematic.
It would be administrative.
It's not that way, though. That's the problem.
Mr. Gavin, then Mr. Clatzer.
I was just gonna say, I feel like were we gonna get some input on if the petitioner wanted to proceed with this as it is? I feel like we started talking about all this, and got into this motion, but I don't know that we ever got any input on whether he actually wanted to proceed with this as presented.
I mean, looks like it's obviously, if we need to change something, so this one needs to be voted. And yeah, if you can give it to me, that'll be great. But on the other hand, I would like to do the best for the city, and I don't want to change too much as well. So
The bottom, are you okay plunking down a second fee to come in front of us with a different plan?
Here's the issue.
That's the bottom line that we're
So,
trying to figure out here, sir.
I would like to get the variance right now, but don't get me wrong, I would like to do the good for the city as well. So, it's gonna take at least a month to do the drawings and everything else. If I can get on ZBA another meeting next month and present the new case, and meanwhile I can submit the drawings to the city to review for the construction with like partial approval of this one to give me like a sort of a yellow light to start working on it, I'll be happy to come back. I'm trying to find a good compromise where the city is happy and I'm happy as well. So that's what I'm trying to.
Well, let's
to
do
bring
this.
up
And
here.
so what I would recommend from this board is let's just make a motion to table this until next month. He can meet with staff. If it just turns out there's no way to make this happen, then this will go away. He'll plunk down his extra money. He'll come back with a different plan and we'll move on.
Sounds good to
Seems
me.
reasonable.
So, Alan would have to rescind his motion.
Well, he could rescind it or we could vote it.
Vote it down. Let me rescind,
And whoever supported.
I'll support
Okay,
rescinding.
rescinded support. So, Mr. Curtis?
Well, I just wanted to ask directly, if the board were to vote, which apparently the motion's now off the table, but if the vote had been a 53-47 with the parcel B being so irregular, you would have been happy with that or not?
I mean, if you guys vote it and approve it, I'll be happy with it. Yes.
Well, it's now off the table.
Isn't it 42 though? It's 42, it's an 8-foot bear
Oh, I'm sorry.
thing.
No, but in
And
front
you
it's
keep talking-
53 and 47.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong number.
Campbell
Thank you.
Yard frontage.
You're right. The variance that's being requested is correct.
The truth of the matter is, you're gonna have a much more balanced look with two 50-foot lots in the front. So, I mean, 53, if you're taking the house down, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Mr. Opak?
I'm gonna move to table this motion.
Thank you, sir.
I'll support that.
Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion to table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We will see you soon, hopefully, and we'll get this whole thing hammered out.
All right, I'll work with Julie to get it rolling.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so that takes us down to, I think, our last item of new business, D7, case number 190620, public hearing on the appeal of Louis Domin, petitioner, and Donna Stone, owner, for the following variances. A, to waive 2 feet of the minimum required 50-foot lot width for parcel A. B, to waive 1,200 square feet of the minimum required 6,000 square foot lot area for parcel A. C, to waive 8 foot of the minimum required 60-foot lot width for parcel B. And D, to waive 800 square feet of the minimum required 6,000-foot lot area for parcel B to permit a land division located at 902 East 4th Street. Mr. Hart.
Okay. My apologies. Okay, this request is also to permit a land division. The subject parcel is located at the intersection of East 4th Street and South Alexander Avenue. Presently, there is a single-family home with a detached accessory structure that does appear quite large when you're looking at it. I can go to the survey and we could get the exact number on that. In any case, so the petitioner proposes to demolish the existing accessory structure and divide the property into 2 parcels. Parcel A would be the new interior lot that would be vacant, and parcel B would contain the existing single-family structure. Both parcels meet the minimum depth requirement of 100 feet. However, parcel A, the interior lot, would require a waiver of 2 feet of the minimum required 50-foot lot width for an interior lot in the one-family residential zone district, and parcel B would require a waiver of 8 feet of the minimum required 60 feet lot width of a corner lot. Additionally, parcel A requires a waiver of 1,200 square feet of the minimum required 6,000 square feet in lot area, and parcel B, the corner lot, requires a waiver of 800 square feet. I should note that in doing this analysis, the first step is to look at similar parcels. In the case of a corner lot, that's going to be all the other corner lots in the intersection, and actually the other 3 corner lots are each in a different zone district, I believe. So there was no ability to use that analysis in order to potentially, take this just administratively. So before you are these 3 requests, and do you have any other questions for me?
Any questions for staff at this point? All right, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present?
Louis Doman, the petitioner for this. This is a piece of property that I've kind of had my eye on and been interested in several years back. It was approximately 5-6 years ago. Met with the then owner, and she was an elderly lady, still marching up and down the stairs. Really nice property, maintained it in really good condition. And I told her and her family at a garage sale, if they were ever selling, definitely, get a hold of me. Fast forward 6 years, here we are. Unfortunately, Ms. Stone passed away just a few weeks ago. But the agreement that I have in place to purchase the property was already executed. Her family's here tonight in support of it. She was in support of it as well. Unlike the other 2 lot split cases here tonight, I have a little bit of a different approach. As I mentioned, I really have a fondness for the house, the existing house. My petition is to keep the existing house, even though an easier variance or less variances would be called for. If we demoed the house, we'd have 2 50-foot lots. The only variance needed would be the fact that it's on a corner lot, and we're asking for 5248, and that 52 is in order to keep the conforming setbacks, the 5-foot setback between the properties. So that's where we came up with the 48 versus 52. I know years ago, I think it was approximately 8 to 10 years ago, properties located on a corner have a different standard than interior lots. And so when the current owner bought the property, there was no 60-foot requirement for the corner lots. So that's one of the hardship cases there, is they thought they were buying a double lot. So in future times, and whatever they decided to do and use the property to their liking, they would have the capability. The code was changed after the fact, and so, fast forward, we're here today, and the variance is needed. I did have a meeting with the neighbors at the premise earlier this week. We had good turnout. We had about 14 people turn out. There was opinions on both sides, to be quite honest. One of the issues that come up, or the concerns, was there's 1 to 2 trees that would possibly have to be removed. So that was some of the concerns on the other side of the table. But far and away, the majority of the people either supported it or were indifferent one way or the other, and just said whatever the homeowners would like to do. They were neighbors with the homeowners for many, many years, and my attorney and consultant was unable to be here this evening, but he provided Joseph, and I think it was passed on to all of you, our case tonight and specific points Hopefully, everybody had a chance to review that. I'm going to highlight just a couple of those points. Julie had mentioned that the corner lots are kind of treated differently, so they couldn't look at it. Well, we did take the initiative to kind of look at the other corner lots on the same block, also behind us. Right behind us at 903 and 907 East 5th Street. Those lots, the corner lot was 50.5 and the interior lot was 49. So they are actually very similar to what we have. We have 100 feet. They actually have just under 100. And also on the other corner of South Gainsborough and 4th, they were very compatible. On the opposite corner, I have the map here in front of me. It was 58 on the corner, but the interior lot was only 40 feet. It's important to note that that 40-foot lot just mentioned, there was a new construction house built in 2015 on a 40-foot lot on this particular block. This block is kind of a mixed bag, if you will. There's everything from two 40-foot lots to two 50-foot lots, some 60-foot lots. Everything was originally platted in 20-foot sections. So there's kind of a mixed bag in that respect. I do have for the record two people that were in support of it. A lot of times what happens is the people that come to the meetings are only the ones that are against it, or, you know, that kind of the squeaky wheel gets the grease, if you will. But I have 14 people within the neighborhood that received the postcard from the city that are in support of it. They've signed their name, number, and their phone number as well.
Sir, if you would hand those to Mr. Ofac, we'll hand them around and get them back to you on the other side.
More than half of those are on 4th or 5th Street within the proximity. Also tonight, after I'm speaking, the homeowner is here in support of the petition as well. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have. I do want to point out a mistake on my part. I had reached out to Ms. Anderson directly. I was unaware of the policy. I was just made aware of it at 4:05 p.m. today. So that was a mistake on my part, and would not have done it if I had known. So for this and any future meetings, that would never happen. So I apologize.
Mr. Ofac.
I have two questions. One, how does, what the house is set up right now for, how are you unable to use that in intended purpose? As in, you have right now one large lot, how can you, what's your hardship in using it as it is?
The hardship is that the original plotting was all 20-foot.
No, how the house is right now functioning, what's the hardship in preventing you from using that hardship as it is continue?
So I suppose you could use the house as it currently
Okay,
is.
thank you.
But
The second question I have is, by splitting the lot, you're moving the garage off, which I can understand. So that would make me assume that that corner lot now, are you planning on putting a garage onto that?
correct, yes. There will be a smaller garage directly behind the home. It'll be approximately 1.5 car garage, so smaller than the oversized garage now. But there will be a garage replaced on the driveway, and you would enter off of the Alexander.
Because my concern with that is, you've now taken this house, a great, nice corner lot that's got a nice yard for some family to use. You've reduced it now to just having behind that small backyard, and now you reduced it again by having to add in another garage. You basically have given this corner house no backyard, and I think that is actually detrimental to using that property.
If you look at the house, there is a large setback from Alexander. So between the sidewalk and the house, there's even an actual entrance from that way. So there's plenty of room for a 10 by 10 patio, furniture set, things like that. There's also a big screened-in porch as part of the house. So there is several options not just backyard, but the side yard. If you're looking at, I have it in front of me here, I can pass it to you. It shows a, you know, looking at this, it's 20 feet from the house to the sidewalk there. So
No,
you
I
pass that
understand.
around. So the corner lot is still a large lot, even with a land division.
I understand that. I'm just saying, if you're going 20 feet deep back for a garage, and you have to have it so far off the front, for setbacks, as well as having space in there for a car, you've now reduced the space behind that garage immensely for a backyard. That's all I'm pointing out.
Sir, in your due diligence, if you were to build the garage as being proposed, would you be exceeding the allowable lot coverage for the size lot if the split were granted?
No, there's no size garage predetermined, so as long as we can get a one-car garage, we will do so, but I don't think we will have a problem as far as the square footage and the capacity of the land.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Correct me if I'm wrong, what is the square footage on the current house?
Current square footage is just under 1,700, about 16.
So, yeah, I'm seeing 1679, something like that. So most houses that are new builds and things like that going on now, they're much bigger than that. Wouldn't this be an ideal opportunity to use some of that side yard, add on to this house?
You know, that is definitely one option. We talked about this in depth at the neighbor meeting. There's two sides, I guess there's 2 points of view. One is to take a 100-year-old home and build an addition onto it, you know, essentially making a mammoth house that really doesn't mirror the rest of the block. A lot of those are 50-foot lots. There's bungalows adjacent to it. Also, I want to point out the gentleman directly to the east of it. We've had conversations back and forth. He said he was unable to attend, but he was kind of indifferent. He said he wasn't for or against it, and he's the neighbor directly to the east. But you'd have one mammoth house, and that really doesn't fit the neighborhood as well, in my opinion, and in the opinion of 12 of the 14 people that came to the meeting. So it is an option. You're taking a 100-year-old home, you're building a new addition onto it, and meshing those would be a bit of a challenge.
Well, I understand that, but I also see that it's been done all over the city. It's a perfect opportunity for that to be done. I don't think it's out of place. It's right downtown. There's a lot of big homes right downtown. And at that point, maybe you can put that an attached garage too, which is very popular these days. So
Most of the neighbors were concerned with the size of a new construction home. The first thing they mentioned is these mammoth homes, 2,800 square feet. Well, if we did some sort of addition onto a house that's already 1,700, you're going to probably end up right around 27, 28, maybe even 3,000 square feet. So, you know, it's really preference. You know, the two other petitioners tonight, one said it was structurally unsound, the house, without providing any documentation. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you or be dishonest and say that this house is unstructurally. I think the house is structurally sound. I want to keep the existing house. The family worked with me specifically because I want to keep and renovate the existing house and not demo it, which would have been the simplest approach to get 2 50-foot lots. I want to keep this existing house. That's the purpose of the 5248.
Any other questions for the petitioner at this point?
Well, I'll make one more comment.
Please.
And that is that you're talking about it'll be too big. It'll, you know, if we add on to this house, but putting 2 houses there is going to be quite mammoth too.
I'm not, the house size has not been determined yet, but as I spoke to the neighbors, I'm not proposing a 2,800 square foot. I propose something just over 2,000 square feet. So you have 1,700. The gentleman directly behind me was at the meeting. His house is 1,900 square feet on the corner. The house the existing house is just under 1,700, which is a 2.5-story. So even from a height perspective, it's going to be tallest on the corner. Then you'd have a proposed new construction, slightly less, and then the bungalow. So it would almost taper in and fit the neighborhood, and the size wouldn't be the 2,800. I look at this as more, because of the depth, you're looking at a house of more of anywhere from 18 to 2,100 square feet. So not one of those mega mansions, 799 or something like that's around the city on different lots.
There was also you brought up the 40-foot lot that is on that block. The reason why that is because it was the backyard to someone's house. It wasn't, it wasn't split sideways. That was a unique situation there, as the board, I think, will recall.
Each of these situations are unique. It is a 40-foot lot that was buildable in 2015 on the same exact block. What we're proposing is 48-foot. And that property, I actually have a copy of that exact house. That one is 2,300 square feet, for the record. It's got the single car attached garage in front. So if you can fit something slightly smaller on a 48-foot lot than what was already built on a 40-foot lot on the same block, I think it would work and meet the neighborhood.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to try and open up the public hearing if there are no more questions from the board. I'm going to ask you to take a seat real quickly, if you would, sir. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this matter? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Mike Piskey. I've lived on Fifth Street since 1990. First, I want to thank the board for taking the time to really delve into these issues. It's very impressive to see that you guys are really thinking things through on this stuff. I've lived around the corner. I live about 4 houses down on Fifth Street. I would say I live on a tiny lot because people on the south side of Fifth Street have 34 more feet. My neighbors behind me are on 4th Street, and 4th Street is even tinier, like 20 feet shorter than my lot, so they're absolutely tiny lots. I was in real estate for 10 years. When I talk about, hey, I want to tear this house down or renovate and split the lot, the only reason I can see people want to do that is they just want money. They want to get some money, they want to move out of the neighborhood, flip it, and go on to the next deal. It is not about the community. We have these huge houses coming in the neighborhood that I couldn't afford to live in my neighborhood in any of the new houses. I paid 90 grand for my house, and that was a bargain. Now I couldn't touch anything for less than 300 in the neighborhood. So it's very frustrating for me to see people coming in, if there's investors going, I want to build bigger, I want to split, I want to squeeze every penny. I think you adequately saw that if you take that garage and move it forward, there is no backyard for that parcel A. Nothing. You say, oh, well, the kids can play out on 4th Street. I wouldn't want my kids playing on 4th Street. So I would encourage, if someone wants to build it and live there, 1,700 square feet, add 500, you have 2,200 square feet. It's not a mansion, it's a beautiful piece of land, it's on a nice spot, it's close to town. So I cannot see any compelling need to split the properties, to jam in more tall houses. I guess my final fear is after we split the lot, we'll be back in a month or two going, oops, I forgot to tell you, I changed my mind. Now I want to build a 2,500 square foot house, and I want more variances because now my build is bigger than I thought. And I just fear that. If you did split the lot, I don't know if you can add deed restrictions. So if they do have a new house in that lot, that they can't come back and ask for a variance, because they say, no, when you got the lot split, you knew you could only build within the current city structures and can't come and ask for another bite at the apple. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? I'll get you next, sir.
My name is Janet Wilson. I was actually at the meeting that Mr. Doman held. He seems like a nice guy. I think he's honest and wants to do best by, doing nice things to the property. My concern was a gigantic house on the block, like that one you talked about, which is just wedged in there. There's like 18 inches between the furnace vent and the fence. So my thought was, if they're gonna split the lot, You know, house should not be any bigger than 1,800 square feet. I like the idea of adding on to it, but it's not my property. You know, the owners have a right to sell the house. I don't want to stand in the way of that. They're not living there as far as I know, and they need to, you know, move on and you know, do something with it. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. I've got this gentleman next, then I'll get you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Labar. I live at 918 East 5th, so actually directly across the street from Mr. Piskey. I was at the meeting as well. I'm just concerned. I don't want to cause a hardship for the family trying to sell the house. I certainly sympathize for that. And the builder sounds like he really does care for this house. If it was to get split, it seems like a good way to go. If I could have my choice, I just like to keep it that way. I like the double lot. It's a big house, but it's not crazy big. And with the extra lot next to it, or the big backyard, I should say, it just looks pleasant. I'm also afraid that, you know, two big houses are gonna go there. We don't know, even the builder told us at the meeting, he could possibly sell that second lot. He's not 100% committed to building a house, so we just don't know what's gonna happen. So it's hard for us to say, yeah, go ahead. In a perfect world, in my world, I'd like it to stay the same, but like I said, I do sympathize for the sellers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Susan Harden, and I live at 914 East 6th Street. And I'm here tonight to thank the petitioner for inviting public comment. I was appreciative that Mr. Doman invited us in to talk about the proposed lot split, and I am in favor of it. I'm happy that they're keeping the house, that it won't be demolished, and so I just came to say that I support the split and keeping the existing house. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Paul Viviano. I live at 811 East 4th Street. In full disclosure, I'm also the real estate agent that listed the property back in February of this year. I just wanted to let the board know that since that time, we've had over 40 private showings. We've tried to encourage individual homeowners to come in and buy the house and restore it. We've had no success. I've had over 3 open houses. I've had at least 30 different people during that time frame as well. When I first met the Keith family back in February, their intent was always to keep the structure where it is. They've owned the home over 50 years. They definitely would love to see it stay there. During this process, we've also been approached by many other builders who have been pretty blunt about wanting to just knock it down and do the 250 lots. So when Lewis came to our table and offered us this particular offer, we were all quite happy with him wanting to keep the current house. And he's also reassured us that the empty lot will have something around 2,000 square feet. I live personally kitty corner to this. I'm gonna be looking at it all day long. It's in my best interest to keep this house as well. But we couldn't find that great person out there that wanted to add to this house or make it this incredible house. We did lower the price several times. In the open houses, I tried to encourage offers from these people. This is where we are today. I'd like to see the family be able to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Clifford Keith. I'm one of the siblings. I have 3 sisters. We're all in agreement on this. The house, my mother has lived there for, well, we've lived there since the early 60s. And we've trying to get her out of the house for the last 20 years since my father died. She would not leave. And one of her reasons was I'm gonna move out of here, they're gonna knock my house down, and I'll be really unhappy. So unfortunately, when her last caregiver left, she had to go to St. Anne's, and that was about 7 months ago.
So we put the house up for sale, and like Paul said, we have no offers, no interest in using it as it is. Yeah, I mean, I know people talk about the nice backyard, but if you look at the property, the garage with the porch on it in the back takes up about a third of the backyard. Another third is on the front side on 4th Street where a privacy fence is along, the front of the house. And it's always been like that. We've never used that front yard. We've never used the back third. The house was originally moved from Washington. It was a beauty salon. And it continued as a beauty salon when they moved it there. That's why it has a big driveway in the back. There was a restaurant across the street, so they needed that for parking. And so that's why that garage is way on the back property like that, and it's a big driveway. But there is a lot of room on the Alexander side. And as far as the house goes, when you go in the house, I mean, even one of the big bedrooms upstairs, there's no closet in it. It was a beauty salon for a while. There's exposed pipes, and, it's not a house that somebody's gonna go in and knock out a couple walls and put a big addition on it. There's a lot to do on that house. And we're not, we're not happy with the lot. I mean, we are happy with if you get a lot split, because it's just a case of saving the house, from being demoed. Because a lot of people were interested in the property, but they wanted us to come down here before the board first and get the lot split at a 50-50. So I appreciate it if you look at this from our perspective too, that it's saving that house from being knocked down. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else? All right, not seeing any hands, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Anybody want to start? Yes, ma'am?
I usually don't like lot splits, but when I was driving down 4th Street, I think if you look at the second set of criteria we have to apply, the other 4 corners are not residential. I mean, I know there is somebody living kitty corner but it doesn't look like a residence. I don't think we're gonna damage the character of the neighborhood by putting in 2 houses here, especially because when you drive by the garage on 4th Street, it looks like a separate residence with a privacy fence in front of it, which looks very secluded and doesn't belong there. I think it would be an improvement, actually, in this case, to have 2 lots. They do have a lot of land on South Alexander. The backyard, if they put a garage where the driveway is, they're not losing anything because it's a driveway. I just don't see the harm in a split here, even though I don't see a hardship. I do see other reasons why it should be allowed.
Is that a motion, Ms. Zukin?
Okay.
I'll support that.
Well, she made her points. You want to make some points, Mr. Kroll?
I don't really have anything to add. I think that it works well.
Mr. Clant, then Mr. Olfack?
Well, number one, I want to commend the applicant for reaching out to the neighbors. I think that was a great thing to do, so I appreciate that. And then, as I mentioned before with the first lot split, I always look for consistency. And as reading Mr. Cowan's letter here, point number 2 really drives that home. There really is no consistency on the street here. 40-foot lots, 50-foot lots, 100-foot lots. So I do think this would be, I do think it would work well with the lot split. I think it would be, it won't do any injustice to the neighborhood.
Mr. Olfack?
The only issue I have is more to the injustice it'll do to the owner of parcel B. I see that if they actually have a garage on there, they have basically no backyard or very little backyard. I do agree it's a hodgepodge of stuff out there, so it's hard to delineate that. Even parcel A, if he throws on a 2,000 square foot house, well, that's more than a footprint of a 500 square foot addition to the current house. So I don't buy the whole garbage of, if you add it on, it makes it look like a monster thing. You're taking up more square footage by adding a new house. So my biggest concern is, like I said, no backyard for parcel B. And I don't know how many people want that kind of a house with no backyard.
Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, I think people who are willing to spend this much money to live in our community are really thrilled with the parks that are nearby. There's a tremendous amount of green space close to this house. And kids can play in that side yard, kids can play in that park. I don't think in a more urban, dense area that you have to have a certain amount of grass to make it a really wonderful place to live here in Royal Oak. And different people's opinions on it, I don't think are well characterized as garbage. So I will be in support of this lot split variance.
Any other comments from the board? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm just not seeing a hardship. That's my problem. I see a lot of, I want to save the old house, I want this and I want that, but I'm not seeing a true hardship. So I won't be in support of the.
Any other comments? Well, I will be in support of this lot split. I think it does substantial justice both to the petitioner as well as the neighborhood. Like Mr. Curtis, the thought that I kept on having is, you know, if I had little kids, would I buy this house? The reality is I wouldn't, but I don't have little kids anymore. And I'm looking for a house like this where I have no lawn and I have no care and my kids are grown and gone and, you know, can wait a long time to get to that point. So, I mean, everybody's got a different life situation. So a family with kids may not look at this house, but not everybody has kids. So with that, I guess I will call for the vote if I don't see any other comments. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
No.
We have, can the nays raise your hands, please, just so we get the right count?
Great.
All right, so the motion does pass. Thank you all for your participation this evening. All right, so then I'm gonna jump back to item number C1, the case at 1203 North Blair. Has anybody made it here to represent that project? It does not look like it. So Ms. Sherhard, what would you like us to do?
Oh, well,
Or
it's
should we
not
go
my
back-
call, but
should we go-
I was
All right.
the one in correspondence with this applicant, and they did send email correspondence ahead of this meeting stating that they had to be out of town for work at this meeting as well.
Well, Mr. Murphy just mentioned that, why don't we just postpone this for one more month and give them another bite at the apple if somebody wants to make that motion?
Fine. I'll make a motion to delay it one more month.
Support. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I really don't care, but.
Go
I think that's a little ridiculous, you know, it's like you had two chances to show up. And you,
Life happens. We don't know what happened, so. All right, is there any other business for the good of the city? Then I will be looking for the mystery motion.
motion to leave.
Nancy do it.
What, motion to leave?
Motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.